Live from the Zoom studios, the 17 and Me Show, starring Ambassador Jeff Rivero, inviting you to join our special guest,
Chef Mitch from UC Merced.
And here we go!
Welcome to the 17 and Me Show, the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Looking forward to introducing our first guest tonight, Chef Mitch from UC Merced. That's right, go Bobcats. Anyway, Chef Mitch is going to tell us what's going on at UC Merced. It's going to be a real gift to have him on our show. And speaking of gifts, why don't crabs and lobsters give birthday gifts? Because they're shellfish. What do you get when you mix chocolate with Iron Man? Robert Brownie Jr. Since we have a chef on tonight's show, I'm going to have to ask him, what's the best thing to put into a homemade apple pie? My teeth. Well, that's the last time I let you guys in for free. And finally, what is a ghost's favorite dessert? Ice cream. All right, we're going to take a commercial break from the United Nations, learn a little bit about their 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We'll be right back with Chef Mitch from UC Merced.
Welcome back to the 17 and Me Show. I can't wait to introduce our next guest. It's Chef Mitch from UC Merced. He's been there since the beginning. Lots of roles and responsibilities out there at UC Merced, and thousands of students that they feed. So let me start off. Chef Mitch, what are some of the roles and responsibilities as the head chef at UC Merced?
So our role mainly is to feed our students that are living on campus and also the students that are living on campus. We do anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 meals a week when we're running at full blast. We have 40 employees and we have over 200 student employees. So our roles and responsibilities are to make sure the food production gets out to feed 5,000 to 8,000 meals a week. We supervise students, we supervise career staff, we come up with the menus, we develop the recipes. We're also responsible for the safety and sanitation of the entire building. In addition to feeding the students, we also have catering operations where we feed dignitaries from government and from all walks of life who come visit campus, donors, and we create special menus for them, usually trying to feature local products from the valley that are grown here in Merced and all other parts of the valley, to feature the wonderful things that are grown here in the valley that we produce here. And we're proud of what we serve at these catering events. Some of our other roles and responsibilities, We do community outreach. It's not really, it is a responsibility because we want to share our knowledge of cooking and what to do with food waste and how to eat local with our community. And that includes young people in the local schools, elementary schools. We've done stuff at the Boys and Girls Club. We're always happy to share our knowledge and our time in the community. But overall, our main responsibility is cooking and producing food for all the residents on campus and students so that they have fuel to be successful in their studies.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did the passion for food come from?
Growing up, both my parents worked in San Francisco and we were living in the suburbs, and their commute was an hour each way. And I was about 9 years old and I got tired of waiting for my mom and dad to come home to cook after 6 p.m. because of their long commute. So I took it on to start learning how to cook. And at first I would just take recipes out of a book. And as I cooked more and I got better at it, I discovered like, I really like this. I really like cooking. I really like pleasing people with my food. And that turned into me wanting to be a chef as a career. Initially, being a chef, I mean, I've been in the business for 35 years. When I first started, it wasn't really, a lot of people didn't have the career goal of being a chef, but I love making food and I love pleasing people. So my first step was I went to a community college who had a hotel restaurant management program, and I completed that program. And in that program, I enjoyed it so much that was like, that's what sealed the deal for me. Every class I enjoyed, every instructor I loved working with. It was Mission College in Santa Clara. They have a really good hospitality management program. A lot of chefs and restaurant owners in the Bay Area started off in that program, and I still stay connected with some of the students that I went to school with there 30 something years ago. That's the kind of relationships I built. After that, I started working in the industry, and I couldn't work in high dining restaurants yet because I didn't have the experience of high dining food. So my first job was actually in a soup plantation, Sweet Tomatoes. It was a restaurant chain that they did soups and salads, and it was all you care to eat. So I looked at it as an opportunity to at least hone my skills as a prep cook because we were chopping so many vegetables by hand. So once I was done working there my first year, I had the knife skills necessary to move on to the next step. And after that, I still wasn't able to find a job in a fine dining restaurant. So I ended up working at Red Lobster. And at Red Lobster, I started working on the hotline, preparing fish, all the seafood dishes that they prepare. So I worked there for a year. And in that year, I was trying to figure out, should I go to culinary school? But that was very expensive even in those days. So I started looking through the avenue of becoming an apprenticeship, chef apprentice. And there's a chef association called the American Culinary Federation, which is an association of chefs. And it's a professional organization where they mentor, they have classes, they do fundraising, they feed people who are in need. They do all these great things. So I reached out to them and they connected me with an apprenticeship program in San Mateo. So I applied there and I hadn't heard anything for 3 months. So I was still working at Red Lobster. And it's funny because the day that at Red Lobster, the day that I found out that they were going to put me into the management training program was the exact same day that I received the approval to join the chef apprenticeship program. And of course, because of my passion for food, I decided to join the chef apprenticeship program. And apprenticeship has a lot of great features that culinary school doesn't. First of all, you're getting paid to learn. You may not be making a lot of money, but you're not paying somebody else to teach you. You get hands-on experience in a high volume operation, which you don't get at cooking school. At cooking school, it's 4 people fighting to make one dish. When you do an apprenticeship, you're basically set in a rotation per station. So like when I first started off, they put me in the salad station. So I was responsible for learning how to make all the salads on the menu, all the sandwiches on the menu, and any desserts that were coming out of that area. And then usually you spend 3 to 6 months, depending on how many different stations the restaurant has. I didn't work in a restaurant, but I worked in a country club. So they had a lot of high-end food that I was able to work with and learn how to work with. After my months in the pantry, then I went to do breakfast, and then so on and so on and so on until 3 years later, after I had rotated through all the stations and done all my hours, I had to take my final exam, where you have to create a menu, 5 courses, and your chef that you're apprenticing under and your instructors from the school get to eat the meal, and they get to grade you. Luckily, I passed with a 94. It was the highest score that the last 5 years, and I shared my knowledge of how to take the apprenticeship test with my other apprentices who were a little bit behind me, and they went on to score better than me, of course, because they had the knowledge that I had shared with them. But I'm always happy to share my knowledge. And from there, I got into my first promotion from apprentice to banquet chef, which means I was responsible for cooking for weddings, bar mitzvahs, any kind of event that you would think of. That was my responsibility. So I stayed on at the country club for 2 more years doing that. And then eventually the sous chef, which is the under chef position under the executive chefs, sous means under in French. He moved on, and the next natural progression was the chef asked me to move into his position. So in that position, I started to take on a supervisory role while also cooking still. And also learning how to order product and learning how to plan menus. I took on that role. So I stayed on there for 3 more years. And then I felt it was time for me for the next step. And I started applying for executive chef positions because I felt I had the knowledge and the skill set to take on the next role. So all that from sous chef, from apprentice to sous chef to executive chef was a 12-year journey. It takes that much time. And even now, 35 years in the business, I still try to learn new dishes. I have over 150 cookbooks in my house and in my kitchen at work combined that I'm constantly referring to. I just bought 2 new cookbooks last week. I always want to learn about other cuisines. I always want to learn about what other people are eating. I always want to share my knowledge of cuisine with other people so that I can expose them to other cultures. Especially here in the Central Valley, there's a lot of different cultures, but there's some things like I just learned how to make some Korean food, and there's no Korean restaurant in Merced. So I was able to share that experience with other people who haven't had Korean food either. So another reason why I love my career. So I made the transition to executive chef. I worked for a corporation where I got to learn corporate food and high volume. Again, we were doing 2,000 to 3,000 meals a day. So same thing, all the skills that I learned from my apprenticeship and from my other previous jobs, I was able to apply to this situation. So it's been a natural progression. So I stayed as executive chef at this corporation for 5 years. And then I decided to move out to the Valley because of housing, and ended up working in university food service at the CSU Stanislaus for a couple of years. And that was completely different because that was a combination of high volume feeding and catering. So that was very interesting because I got to do both, and I was always busy and time went by fast. And then the university here of California, Merced, opened up, and my boss, who had moved on from CSU Stanislaus to become the director here at UC Merced, asked me to apply for the job. There was a couple other candidates, but because I had such varied experience, I came out on top, and I've been here for the last 15 years, enjoying working with our students and our community, and still able to do high volume food and still do the high-end catering, which is a part of my job that I really enjoy.
Let's take this commercial break from UC Merced. Chef Mitch, would you mind telling us some of the chefs that you've had the opportunity to meet, maybe some of the ones that fueled your passion or gave you words of advice you'd like to share?
Last year, or a year ago, I met this chef who's running a cookbook, and he had a TV show called Scraps, Joel Gammeren. And I had met him at a conference, and I had got him to agree to come to Merced and do a cooking presentation, and then have a fundraising aspect where he was gonna, we were gonna prepare food together and then invite guests, and all that food was gonna go to our food pantry on camp. All the money was from the funds raised was gonna go to our Bobcat pantry. And because of COVID, that all disappeared. So I was able to meet him, which I really respect anybody who is trying to be zero waste, especially when they're cooking, because there's so much trim and waste when you're preparing food, especially at high volumes. So like some things that we do on campus is we recently started donating some of our veggie trim to the local zoo. That way it's going into the animals and not into the landfill. We have our partnership, of course, with Mr. Rivera for our coffee grinds, where he uses our coffee grinds to go into the student garden. So we're always looking for those relationships, and there's a bunch of other things that we do on campus. Another chef that I was able to meet by phone, but wasn't able to get him to campus yet is Chef Roy Choi from Koji Tacos in Los Angeles. So he actually agreed to film a congratulatory video for our graduating class last summer, where he congratulated them because they were trying to find celebrities. And I reached out to him blindly, not even knowing him, just saying that I admired his work. And he responded, he said, yes, I'm happy to film a video. Eventually, I hope I can build a relationship where I can get him also to come on campus eventually once COVID is over and do a presentation. He's had an interesting life. I just bought his biography / cookbook, and he had some adversity in his life that he surpassed, and he's a big success now.
Chef Mitch, as you know, we're going through some rough times right now. I'd like to ask, are there any words of encouragement or words of wisdoms that you'd like to share with our audience and some of my students today?
Always remain positive. Always look for the best in people. Don't look for the worst. Have empathy for people. Put yourselves in their shoes. Don't naturally assume that they're doing something because they're being vindictive or they're mad. Maybe they're having a bad day at home and they're having problems at home that you don't even understand the pressure that they're under. As I've gone through my career and have worked with different chefs, I found that the best chefs to work for and the best managers to work for are ones that actually care about their employees and have empathy for their employees and have a genuine feelings for their employees. Some of my employees have been working with me for 15 years. It's a family to me. I've been to their quinceañeras. We've cried together when the family member has passed away in their family. I like to stay close. I mean, they're my family away from my real family, and I'm blessed to have had so many of my team members stay on with me for the entire 15 years that I've been at the university.
Is there one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that you have the most passion for, and can you explain why?
So naturally, as a chef, for me, it's the zero hunger and a good health and well-being. It's a shame for me. I'm really passionate about educating people about food waste and trying to find other avenues to get some of this food that is perfectly edible to people to eat. So like on our campus, we started a program called the Ugly Produce Rescue Initiative. And we partnered with our produce vendor, Daylight Foods, and asked them, would you be willing to donate the imperfect vegetables that you get returned from the grocery stores to our campus? And they said yes. So it started with our campus. Initially, we were doing like 50,000 pounds a year of vegetables that we rescued. So we either donated them to the food bank here in town, or we would donate it to our food pantry on campus. it's become a much bigger thing now. They've actually started donating their ugly produce to 6 different campuses, and each campus has surpassed 100,000 pounds of donated vegetables from Daylight Foods. And so almost 1 million pounds, 700,000 pounds of food rescued from their landfill has gone to feed hungry students, hungry community members, and now, with the addition of what we were doing with the zoo, hungry animals. So there's always a better way. There's always avenues to rescue the food and give it to people who are hungry. So that's one of our passions. And of course, it ties in with the good health and wellness, because vegetables and fruits are the most nutrient dense items that you can eat. And I think the people who are getting these vegetables and fruits are the ones most in need of having nutrient dense foods, because most likely they're eating the cheaper items that are in the store shelves, like ramen and those type of items, processed foods.
Well, Chef Mitch, our time rapidly came to an end tonight. I really appreciate you being here for the interview, and thank you for sharing your experiences and some of the highlights of your career at being the head chef at UC Merced. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you all. I know these are tough times, but try to stay positive. Remember that readers are leaders. There's so much to learn from reading. Stay off social media. I've made a point to stay off social media because it's so negative, and I think it actually has a impact on your mental health in a negative way. So, and I noticed a difference. And be safe, be well, and if you have any questions about a career as a chef, please feel free to talk to Mr. Rivero, and he's more than welcome to give you my contact information. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about being a chef. See you all later, and remember that scratch-made food tastes better than processed food. So I encourage everybody to learn how to cook. It also saves you money.
Thank you for watching this episode of the 17 and Me Show, the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals show. If you have any questions about the Sustainable Development Goals, or if you'd like to teach it in your classroom, please go to teachsdgs.org. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode of 17 and Me.